Do you know every time you say yes to something, you are actually saying no to perhaps a range of other things? We're going to be talking about a new key to success, and that is choices. If there's one thing you and I have in common, it's the fact that we've been given what we call the free will, the ability to choose. The law of choices is one of the most important laws that you have to understand. It's one of the most important principles for success. The reason is simply because the quality of your life, the results you've obtained so far in your life, the results perhaps you would have wanted to have obtained but don't have, really comes down to the choices you've made. Your life today is a composition of all of the choices you've made, perhaps aggregated over a period of time, or even in some cases compounded over a period of time. And one of the things you have to really get good at is making decisions, making the right choices. You see, life is not a matter of chance or luck. It's about choices. I personally do not believe that my life is destined in a traditional sense, that everything that is meant to be will be. No, I disagree with that philosophy. I believe that every day I create my destiny. Right now, I chose this destiny to be here with you. Why? Because I made a choice. I believe that the decisions and choices we have to make are not predestined. However, the outcomes from the choices and decisions we make are somewhat known. The world, the life operates by laws. There's a law of gravity. Gravity simply says that if you throw something up, it's going to fall back down within the Earth's gravitational pull. And so there is a law. You have to make the choice to perhaps violate the law of gravity. Gravity simply does what it does best. And so in an interesting way, I believe that if you want to be successful in any area of your life, one of the things you have to understand is the importance of making the right choices. Now think about this. Just imagine and look back perhaps 4, 5, maybe 6 years, and ask yourself the question, is there one particular decision that I perhaps could have made that could have altered the outcome of my life today? I know for a fact in my case that every day I wake up in the morning, I have to make a choice. I have to make choices that I believe are pushing me in the direction of my dreams. And in some cases, I'm making choices that I don't really know what the outcomes might be, but I'm hopeful because I'm thinking in advance. I'm hopeful that the choices and the decisions that I make in the present will be consistent with the outcomes that I want in the future. And so if you are looking at success as something you want to become a regular experience, you have to become really good at knowing how to make the right choices and how to make the right decisions. Both of them go hand in hand. The quality of your life is based on the quality of your decisions. But the quality of your decisions comes as a result of the quality of your thinking. The quality of your thinking decides what you choose from based on the options available and what you select, perhaps to try, perhaps to implement, or even in many cases, perhaps to walk away from. I usually say that when you and I were born, we were born with a gift. That gift is the power of choice, the free will. We get time as a gift when we're born, but we come with the power to choose, the power to decide. Unlike animals that have instincts and they operate on what we call the genetic code, you and I can alter the circumstances and the outcomes in our lives whenever we choose to. If I look back at my life, for example, if I look at the 3, what I would call quarters of my life, the first third, I look back and I say, well, I was still very young. And unfortunately, a lot of the choices I made, I somewhat made under the influence of people who loved me, people who guided me, and people who were responsible for me. My parents, people who perhaps or part of my family, my friends. Perhaps, not always, but perhaps, in some cases, they made choices based on what they thought was best for me. The second part of my life, I started to get of age. I started to be more responsible. I started to think inductively and deductively. I could now distinguish between what was right and what was wrong, but still, I didn't have as much experience. I lacked wisdom. I had some knowledge, I had some information, but I still lacked wisdom in various areas of life. But in the third part of my life, what I found is I moved from the teenage age to become a little bit more responsible, whereby I was responsible for myself, now responsible for my success. And that meant that I couldn't look back at the past and blame someone else for my life or the decisions that I had made, that it was all me. You see, those who were responsible for raising you and guiding you and training you had a responsibility for you. And their responsibility was to bring you to a point whereby you could think for yourself. You don't have to look backwards and say, well, if my mother, my father, or if the government, or if I had been educated in the right way, perhaps my life would be better. That's all irrelevant. You're responsible for getting yourself from where you are right now to where you want to be. And what I'm trying to say to you is this: if you're going to achieve that goal, you need to be able to make the right choices. A goose can only fly south in the winter. Why? Because it's a goose. Genetically, a goose cannot choose. So even if south looks very, very, very terrible, genetically it's programmed to fly south. You and I are different. We are the only life form that have this unique gift of choice, in that we can live a life in a certain way for perhaps 10 years and decide that we're done with that lifestyle. We can choose that we're going to design a new life plan, a new life path, and then we can start living the new life path. And so if you want to be successful, here is the key. It's not what happened in your past. It's not what's happened today or your present. It's what you want in the future. And all you have to do is make a choice, make a decision that every day from now, that you will start living consistently in what I call the feeling, living the feeling of that future you want. In other words, you have to become like an actor. You decide what you want, and then you act as though you already have what you want. I'm not suggesting you be fake, no. I'm saying in your imagination. You've got to see yourself in your imagination, in your mind, as already achieving all of those dreams and all of those goals. And then based on the feeling you're able to create within, you make the right choices without that guide you step by step towards achieving that goal. And those choices will be very simple. It will come in various forms. Self-discipline, who to pursue for knowledge and wisdom, and what to walk away from in relation to what is not going to take you in the direction of your dreams, what to study, what you're going to sacrifice, the price you're going to have to pay for success. In every area of your life, there are choices you have to make, and you have to become a little bit more, what I would say, subtle and a little bit more fine-tuned in how you make decisions and choices. We're very much habitual human beings. A lot of the decisions we make are habitual. We don't think about it, we just do it, because in many cases, a lot of the decisions we make, perhaps we react. We don't really respond. Now, I usually say to people that there's a difference between reacting and responding. When you react, the external circumstance, the event, the person is in control. When you respond, you are in control. When you react, you're coming from a place that is emotional. Perhaps it's from a feeling of you trying to defend yourself. When you respond, you're coming from a place that is rational. It's logical, meaning that you're thinking before you speak, or you're thinking before you act. And so choices requires response, not reaction. Because by responding, it means that you simply take the time to think. When you're making choices, you simply ask yourself a question. What are the consequences of this decision I'm making in the short term, but also in the long term? And what would be the consequences of not making the decisions? I usually have something that I use. It's called KNIKN. Knowing what I know now. Simple philosophy. Whenever I'm about to make a decision, I say to myself, well, project yourself 4 or 5 years into the future and stand back and ask yourself the question, the results that could come about as a result of the decision you're making right now, in that future, if you were to ask yourself the question, knowing what I know now, would I have made the decision that I made back then? Whenever the answer is yes, I feel more comfortable about making that choice or making that decision. Whenever the answer is I don't know, then I apply a principle that I call patience. You bring in the law of patience into your life and simply allow yourselves to think longer about the decision. There are various decisions there and choices that we have to make very slowly. I know a lot of people say successful people make their minds up very quickly and change their minds very slowly. And unsuccessful people make their minds up very slowly and change their minds regularly. But that has to be put in context. There are certain decisions and choices that you have to take the time to make them. I'll give you a few examples of those. The decision about who you're going to choose as a life partner is not a decision or a choice you should make immediately or make spontaneously. It's a decision that you should make, but also you should consult a lot of people because it's a very important decision. The decision about where perhaps you're going to live, perhaps you want to buy a home, it's an important decision because you're taking on board, in many cases, you're taking on a mortgage for 30 years, 35 years, and so you want to think about the decision long enough, consult the right people, draw in other, what I call brilliant minds to help you come up with the right choice. The decision about perhaps what you're going to do with your life in terms of your purpose or your passion, these are all important decisions. So in every area of life, there are important decisions that we have to make. And if we get those decisions right, we are successful. I'm going to conclude by sharing with you what I consider to be one of the most profound conversations I've ever had. Some time ago, I met up with a friend. I call him a friend, but in reality, he is a mentor. He's much older than I am, but also much wiser than I am, much more experienced. And I found that there are various people who have experience, who have wisdom and who have knowledge, but they don't have the passion to teach. They don't have the ability to choose the right words and perhaps put it into the context that the protege or the mentee would understand. In this case, this mentor of mine is exceptional. He loves to teach, he knows how to select words, and he can relate his experiences with mine. And one day I sat with him and we were having lunch, and I asked him a question. I said, in what way would you classify your life as successful? And he thought about it for about 20 seconds, and he said that one of the most important decisions that he had to make at a young age came in 4 parts. He said, this decision came in 4 parts. I was very clear about success and what I wanted, but he said, I knew if I got these decisions right and they made the right choices, that I would be successful. He says, number 1, he said, I wanted freedom. I wanted to live my life on my terms. So I had to design a plan and make a choice, make the right decisions that would ensure that financially I was secure and I didn't have to be at the beck and call of anyone. That's the first thing. Number 2, he said I had to make sure that I chose the right partner. And when I was about to get married, it was the right person. He said that was the most important decision of my life. He said number 3, he said I wanted to be happy. He said, happiness is a result. It's not something you pursue. He said, happiness is something that you get based on what you do. It's a result. And he said, I had to design my life in such a way that I had fulfillment and joy around what I was doing, and the result was happiness. And finally, he said, I had to make sure that I looked after the most important person in my life, and that was me. And I had to ensure that I had a personal development plan to ensure that every time I was benefiting and I was growing and I was happy and I felt loved by myself. And I thought about it and I said, that's wonderful, that's beautiful. Because you see, he made the right choices. And as a result of that, he said, I think I'm successful. I know it's a subjective view, but I think based on the future that I wanted to experience, he said, I'm living my dreams. He said, there is no day I don't wake up and I say, I'm still free. I can go where I want to go. I can live in any country I want to live in. I can afford anything I want to afford. I'm free. He said, I have the woman of my dreams and we have beautiful children and we're happy. He said, I'm also very happy because I made the right choices. I wake up every morning with a smile on my face. And finally, he said, I'm still looking out for the most important person in my life, and that's me. So you see, success, in whatever area you want to define it, you're going to have to get good at making the right choices. I can't tell you what choices you need to make. You're going to have to study yourself, perhaps look at your dreams and look at your goals and ask yourself a simple question. What choices, what decisions do I need to make and do I need to get right to ensure that I achieve my heart's desires?